In this GYDA Talks, Robert talks to Andy Lambert of ContentCal. Andy is one of the founding team and Director of Growth at ContentCal. From starting out as an agency and then launching their software product in 2017, ContentCal is now used by over 40,000 businesses in over 140 countries. Robert and Andy discuss the journey to 2020, managing content in a crisis, what does good look like, and authenticity with your audience, plus much more.
Hello and welcome to the GYDA Talks, and today I'm absolutely delighted to have as my guest the legend in his own lifetime, which is Andy Lambert from ContentCal. And it's great to have him here because so many of us have heard of him, so many of us use the product, so many wonder about using the product, and he's one of these guys who you go to a conference, there he is. So hello, it's absolutely great to have you here.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Thanks for the lovely intro, Rob.
So come on, just briefly, you in your words, describe what it is that you're doing and what you're doing at the business.
So I'm Director of Growth and one of the founding members of ContentCal, which is a content marketing software product.
Cool. And we're in 2020 now. I'm going to say post-COVID, but I don't think we are. But we're kind of end of July going into August. Just what's the short synopsis version of how you've got to 2020?
Yeah, so let's do it in 4 sentences over the last 4 years. So point 1, 2016, founded by a guy called Alex Packham. He created us as a social media agency and then came up with an idea for a software product, which ended up being called ContentCal, wasn't then, but ultimately him as an agency trying to build with numerous clients, productivity nightmare, lots of backwards and forwards around content plans, didn't work. So went off and wanted to build a bit of software. Part 2 of the story is where I come into the fold. So Alex recruited me and one other to build the business because we have a bit of software background, created the business from scratch. We were still an agency at that point, but kind of kept the software as a little kind of side project, but with a team focused on it. Raised some investment. 2018 was spent battling between, are we an agency? Are we a software company? Are we both? Which gets more focus. That was a huge challenge. And then skip forward into 2020, we've now raised Series A. We now have venture capitalists on board, raised close enough to 7 million, and now used by 40,000 businesses in 140 countries.
What's the what do you think the secret sauce about the product is that 40,000 people use it?
The secret sauce. The best thing I think we ever did in the early days was for every single customer we brought on, whether that was regardless of how much they paid, even if they're using it for free, we asked them to write about us. If they had a great experience, write about it. If you got a blog, write about us. Here's our review sites, go leave us a review. That leaves a digital footprint that serves you so well into the future that, I was speaking to a massive business yesterday. I was like, how did you find us? They were like, well, I just Googled best content calendar. You came up first. Then I read a review that said you were great. So I bought. I'm like, there you go. That's the strategy.
Okay, and what do you think it is that that those 40,000 or 35,000, I don't know, let's say 40,000, what do those 40,000 people love about what you do? Because they don't have to go to you, they could go somewhere cheaper, Yeah,
cheaper, yeah. I mean, to be fair, there's 1,000 other competitors to what we do. So, and not everyone loves us as much as I make it sound. not everyone does, right? But I think the main bit of feedback is like we're just super intuitive. The key difference is Alex, myself, we're not software developers, we're content marketers. So when we look at software, we look at it through the lens of someone that is a practitioner of what they do, and we're selling to practitioners. So ultimately, the biggest bit of feedback we hear is like, it feels like you've looked at my Google Doc and made a digital version of it. So, and that you can't hear any better feedback than that. because you're living in your customer's mind.
Yeah. So you're are all your sales into agents? And what's the split? Agencies, freelancers, and social media managers in businesses. What's the sort of split of users?
Yeah, fantastic question. Early days was all agencies, because naturally we had a great story to tell and we had a really specific use case, because our product was missing a whole heap of features. But the main use case was that agencies that really want to simplify the content management process with their clients. So creating content, going through the numerous review and approval processes within the agency, and the painful process of reviews with clients. So that was a really clear use case. That was our first focus, and it's still about 40% of our customer base is really just agencies, because we've grown a reputation there. But the nice thing about agencies is that they have clients, and their clients also like to buy new software. So it ended up referring into brands, where marketing managers or social media managers started to gain a keen interest in our product. And as our features developed over time, we've seen more and more people from B2B and B2C orientated organizations buying us too.
So I'll ask you again. What's the split?
40 agencies, 60 brand.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. Cool.
And when I say agency, that's a split between people like Dentsu Aegis, for example, and people that are one person in their house with one client. So I class that as all agency, but it's a huge spread between your digital big boys versus freelancers.
Yeah, and Dentsu is using their version a little bit more than the one person business on their dining room table.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, they're still using it whilst as a business, they might be using it a bit more, but the freelancers hammer the hell out of our product. Yeah, because to be fair, this goes into the conversation we were having just before about like activity versus true business results. So there's definitely, we see a bit of a mix of that.
Yeah. So, okay. So we're in July going into August 2020, kind of lockdowns being relaxed a bit or quite a lot. The question has to have been, and still is, how on earth should you manage content in a crisis?
So we've done a lot of work around this, and we've had some professionals in from NHS and that kind of thing, some digital communications professionals to help either advise us and advise our customers on this stuff. And I found it absolutely fascinating. But as a bit of guidance, the number one thing, we've got a framework around it. We call it the V.O.I.C.E framework, V.O.I.C.E. Number one, the key point is visibility. And that is the thing where most businesses struggle, is that they have no idea what's going on and where. So you find business leaders getting surprised by either a blog post that went out on this site, or the fact they were doing a podcast on this, and they have no flipping clue about what's going on at any given point. So visibility is a key one. And once you've got visibility, you go into the O, which is organization. Happening, you can start putting together the things that are going on, where you might like, let's actually maybe double down, or do less on the podcast, or let's forget Twitter, let's kill our messaging entirely, let's change it. We can, once we know what's happening, it becomes easier to organize. So then we go into the I bit, which is more about ideation, because this is about getting more and more people involved in what good content looks like. So, and this is a challenge and a nut we're trying to crack with a lot of businesses, because the whole content marketing, which is the mouthpiece of the business, is run by a marketing team or a smaller team. Yet all of the inspiration and the ideas should be coming from a broader source. So ideation is critical to that. C relates to collaboration, fairly easy point, getting people involved. The best ideas are created together. And then E relates to execution, because I would have put delivery there, but it doesn't make a nice acronym, does it? So
that's funny. And do you? I think all of us have posted these kind of viral videos about how not to advertise, because every advert is quiet classical piano music, people looking out over a sunset, and then the strap line, whether it's McDonald's or anyone, is we're in this. Sorry, I got to get low voice. We're in this together, and
Go on.
it's empty and meaningless. So how do I hate the word authentic? I hate the word with a vengeance because it's used all the time. But how do we demonstrate our values through the content? Is it just actions speak louder than words, or is there something that the good players are doing better than the bad players?
The best examples of this, and it's a really hard thing to answer in a sentence, but the best examples of this is where you give your customers a platform, where your customers are using your services, or you're delivering either services, whether, I talk from a software lens, but that might well be delivering services for a particular client, ultimately opening up what your customers are doing with your product or service to generate good. That to me gives fantastic authenticity, because it takes the whole conversation away from your product, or you trying to feign, authenticity, to your point. And I think Squarespace do some really good customer stories related to this, about, because they're a Squarespace being a website provider. Yeah. But the power that people generate through the website. So they talked about, they did a really short case study on a small business that was doing some really valuable work in their local community. To me, that represents, it's not really about authenticity necessarily. It's about, we offer a product, and that product can be used for some really good reasons and inspire people in the process. So that's the kind of marketing, the paid media, that I think represents brands really well, if that makes sense.